Good evening, everybody. TGIF and happy 2020. This is our first virtual tasting series of the new year. And tonight we're tasting Pinot Noir. This is presented by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, and I'm very happy to have you joining us tonight. My name is Julie Purpura Hosbach, and I'm the Education and Member Services Manager at the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. I am a certified sommelier through the Court of Master Sommeliers, a certified specialist of wine through Society of Wine Educators, and Wine Spirit Education Trust Level 3 certified, which basically all mean I'm a huge wine nerd. I love discussing and appreciating wines. And if you're joining us for the first time, just jump right in. We usually talk about each of the wines we're tasting, go through the steps of appreciation, and I add fun wine nerdy facts in along the way. We kicked off our tasting series, if you're new to us, in June with rosés, and from there we've tasted a different varietal each month. Make sure you mark your calendars for we're having a special edition wine and chocolate pairing on February 12th in lieu and honor of Valentine's Day. Before we officially kick off, I want to thank you for your involvement in the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. If you haven't seen it yet, check out our bold new brand we released the end of August this year. You can check out our website for more details. We're looking forward to new and exciting initiatives to benefit all of our members and wine enthusiasts. I am going to put my information in the chat toolbar feature for you. If you have any suggestions or comments or thoughts or feedback you want to share with me, please contact me at any time. If you're new to Zoom or these webinars, there is a Q&A feature and a chat bar feature. You can feel free to type in your comments. So this is more fun the more you interact and put your comments in and share. So it's not just me. So please feel free to, there is no such thing as any stupid questions or comments. So please be very participative in this tasting. I sent everybody the tasting sheet. Hopefully you all have it. You are welcome to take notes, but you don't have to. I will send a link of the recording out to everybody. Usually I get it within about 24 hours. So we should have it definitely by early next week. All right, so let's get on to tasting wines. Tonight's lineup is White Cliff Vineyards Rosé of Pinot Noir. So yes, we're having a pink wine in addition to red wines tonight. From the Hudson Valley, we have Buttonwood Grove Winery's Reserve 2017 Pinot Noir from the Finger Lakes. And they're actually between Seneca and Cayuga Lake, but considered Cayuga Lake. And McCall Wines 2014 Reserve Pinot Noir from Long Island, the North Fork. So if you were with us when we tasted rosés back in June, I can't even believe it's been that long ago, you will recall that we use generally to make pink wines, winemakers use dark skinned grapes, or what we call grapes to use make red wine, and they can vary from really any grape the winemaker chooses to use. Typically though, we see a lot, especially in the Finger Lakes, of rosés from Cabernet Franc, Limburger, and Pinot Noir, especially Pinot Noir, and there's a lot of that around the world. So I thought it would be cool to showcase a rosé tonight in addition to some of our reds, to add in some fun talking points about the differences and similarities of what you can see through as the grape, Pinot Noir itself, and then of course the way it's produced, the production process or winemaking process has a big impact on the end product, as well as where it's grown. So the first wine we will try, and we'll go through the steps of appreciation like we always do. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them and share your comments in the chat toolbar. The first wine we're tasting is White Cliff Vineyard out of the Hudson Valley's 2018 Rosé of Pinot Noir. And they have very steep slopes. White Cliff Vineyards is owned by the Migliores, Yancey and Michael. They have had their vineyard since 1979. They're one of the oldest vineyard sites in the Hudson Valley region, dedicated to sustainability and producing artisanal wines. So first step of wine appreciation is generally take a look at your wine. And remember, we want to do that under best optimal light that you can get, preferably against a white sheet. So if you have your tasting sheet, you can use that as backdrop. And you want it at about a 45-degree angle. So generally when you're looking at a wine, you're assessing the color. That can tell you something about the grapes that might be used, the age of the wine. So again, refresher, white wines tend to get more darker and golden as they age. Red wines tend to get lighter, more brickish brown color. And we can have different shades from, tonight we'll see Pinot Noirs have thin skins. They're thin skin grapes, so generally they're a more light ruby red, or if they have aged, might be getting a little bit more garnet. But if we have grapes like Cabernet Sauvignon, which we tasted last month, they're very thick skins, and then they tend to be more a dark inky color, right? So it can tell us a lot. Obviously, you want to make sure there's nothing floating. You can observe and see if there's bubbles, if it's that type of wine. But we are, for all intents and purposes, this rosé is, so pinks can vary between pinky orange, pinky red. This is pretty, I would say, a nice light pink with a hint of salmon to it. And then we assess as a clear versus cloudy when we're talking about wine appreciation. And so cloudy means it would kind of be like the consistency of milk, right? You would see those like thick protein milk. You wouldn't see them, but it would be like cloudy in appearance versus clear. So this is clear. Most of the wines we get are clear. It just doesn't go through as many clarification steps. If it's cloudy, you tend to see more old world European countries producing wines like that. But as a stylistic choice, it wouldn't hurt you to drink it. So don't be afraid. So light pink salmon and clear. All right, the next step is to swirl. That helps release the aromas, and then we want to smell. 85 to about 90% of what we actually taste comes from our sense of smell, so this is a really important step. You want to make sure you take lots of good inhales. So take a few sniffs, and then feel free to share again in the chat bar what you're smelling. I'm definitely getting a lot of bright red fruits, strawberry, raspberry, cherry. Get a hint of floral. If you can imagine you were sitting out next to like a waterfall, like that kind of wet rock smells going on. I feel like rosés always create a pretty picture of being on a picnic. You've got like your red berries you're snacking on, you're laying in a meadow or next to a waterfall, lots of fresh, fragrant smells. Anybody smelling anything else or different that they want to share? All right, if you're happy with the smell, go ahead and take a taste. So when we taste it, we pretty much taste sour, salt, sweet, bitter. We're going to be assessing its structural components. So if you're new to this or need a refresher, we're going to be tasting for acidity. Tannins are generally associated with red wines. They come from the skin, seed, stems, and also oak. Skin, seed, stems, seeds, and then oak contact. So generally tannins are mostly found in red wines, but with pink wines, you'll have a little bit there. Alcohol content is a warming sensation, which also affects the body, the weight of the wine. So does it feel like skim milk or whole milk? And then is it dry, which is the absence of sugar, off dry, in the middle, all the way to sweet. All right, so go ahead, take a sip. So acidity is like biting into a lemon. Your jaw tenses, your mouth waters. Generally, cool climates tend to have higher acidity grapes, and then there's certain grapes that just in general have high acidity. So like Sauvignon Blanc and Riesling are typically known for high acidity. If you tuck your chin in and feel the propensity to drool, like those are all mouth-watering characteristics that remind you of acidity. So wines all have some level of acidity between low and high. In the world of wines, where would you place this on acidity levels? I would definitely call this medium plus acid, going towards high. Very mouth refreshing. Tannins you don't really feel. Tannins are that mouth drying texture. You'll get them more in the next two that we try. Cabernet Sauvignon, Shiraz, Syrah, Malbec, those are high tannin level wines typically. So it's a mouth drying textural feeling that goes on your teeth and tongues. So this was very low. Is it dry in the middle or sweet? What do you think? Now, often we get fooled with things that smell very fruity because again, we smell, so much of our senses are what we smell, and fruit makes our brain think sweet. So sometimes with whites and rosés, often if they're really fruity, they might appear to seem like they're a little bit sweeter than they are. So this is actually a dry wine. If there might be, so dry is anything less than 1% residual sugar, according to the International Riesling Foundation. So if you are ever not sure and you're blind tasting a wine and you're trying to assess it, a trick that is a fail-safe trick that they teach you in sound school is to plug your nose and take a sip. So go ahead. Swallow while your nose is plugged. And if you actually can't taste sweetness, then you know it was just the fruit making you think it was sweet. The smell was making you think it was sweet. So this would be categorized as a dry rosé. And then alcohol is a warming sensation. So if you generally don't pick up any sort of warming sensation or maybe feel a little bit in your nose, generally it's between, the wine is like 8 to 10% alcohol. If you feel a warming sensation in your throat, it's generally typically 10 to 12%. And then anything above 12, 12.5 is typically a warming sensation you feel in your chest. All right, so anybody want to guess what this one was? I definitely felt like it was a throat wine, right? So I would guess around 12%. Again, typically hot climates have higher, so a lot of California wines, they're like 13 and up % alcohol because they're so warm. Typically cooler climates are more in that like 11 to 13% range. So it is on the bottle. If you have it in front of you, it is, I don't know if you can see in my screen, but it is 12% alcohol. So great job with that one. So go ahead and make any last notes on, so we talked about the alcohol being 12%. Alcohol is a component of the body or the weight of the wine. So would you place this at something that feels like skim milk, a light-bodied wine, maybe 1 or 2%, a medium body, or would you place it like the weight of whole milk and that would be full body? I would probably place this between skim and 1%, medium minus body. So make notes on what you liked. Any other extra comments or thoughts on this wine before we move on? All right, so next we're going to be going to Buttonwood Grove Winery's 2017 Reserve Pinot Noir. As I said, they are located in the Finger Lakes between Seneca and Cayuga Lake and Romulus label. They're considered part of the Cayuga Lake. Sorry that it's looking a little blurry. This spent 15 months in oak. And again, the vintage is 2017. So take a look at this color. Again, 45-degree angle against a white backdrop. And this is pretty dead on ruby. Beautiful red. It is clear. So even though with red wines we have more color pigment, it's not cloudy, it's clear. All right, go ahead and swirl and smell. What smells do you get? What aromas do you get in this wine? I definitely get lots of cherry. There's like a smokiness to it. There's an earthiness to it. So when you hear people talk about an earthy character, generally with white wines, they mean like this minerality or wet rock characteristic, and with red wines, it typically is more of like a soil or truffle mushroom kind of earthy smell. Definitely reminiscent of that for me. I get some other red berries too, some more raspberry. There's some beautiful baking spices going on. So this was, as I said, 15 months in oak. Typically when you see reserve on a label in the US, it's not mandated by law like it is in some old world countries, but typically that means that it's spent more time in oak aging. And while we're talking about Pinot Noir, let's take a side note. I know we want to taste, but so Pinot Noir is one of the most widely grown international grapes of the world, one of the most, most popular Vitis vinifera species. Its old world home is definitely Burgundy. So if you are a Burgundy lover, all red Burgundies are made pretty much from Pinot Noir, and white Burgundies are made from Chardonnay. So it is the red grape of Burgundy. It also is grown quite a bit and it is the dominant red grape of Champagne, of the Champagne region. So the three grapes used in Champagne, if you remember from our sparkling wine session, are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Famous New World regions vary from the United States, Chile, New Zealand does quite a bit of Pinot Noir. But it is grown in almost every wine producing region of the world that I can think of, the big ones. So it is generally one of the more highly sought out grapes to both grow, produce, and consume. It is somewhat of a winemaker's challenge. It's a very delicate grape. As I said, it has thin skins. You have to be really careful with your fermentations and temperatures, but it can produce a wide variety of styles and wines, from sparkling to still, red, rosé, and it can even sometimes in some countries, Germany for one, produce it as a white. So they press the grapes, they treat them like a white wine, they press them off the skins right away, and then make it into a white wine. So often it's known for its red fruit and earthy, savory flavors and aromas. So anyway, back to this one, baking spices. Sorry, I digress. Get a lot of those like allspice, cinnamon, nutmeg, some lovely baking spices that you pick up from the oak. Anything else? All right, let's go ahead and taste it. Pay attention and roll it around. Feel all your senses working so you can get the structural elements. I should say that Buttonwood Grove was bought by the Fitards in 2014. They had the Governor's Cup at our Foundation's New York Wine Classic for the best Riesling in 2017 with their 2016 Riesling. And as I said, they were on Cayuga Lake, or in between Cayuga and Seneca Lake, and this is an estate-grown Pinot Noir. So what did we think on its taste? So that acidity, that mouth-watering, jaw-tensing, like biting into a lemon. What do you think? It definitely still had really nice acidity. I would say probably medium plus acidity, at least medium for sure. Cool climate wines not only are higher in acidity, but they're also, because of that, like a lot of old world countries, very food friendly. So this would be an excellent food wine. Before I forget, we'll go back to that. But yes, medium plus acidity. Now, counteracting that, tannins, can you feel that structural element? Pinot Noirs typically are, in the world of red wines, low to medium tannins. I would say that these ones are medium minus. So it's a, coating on your teeth and tongues that tannins help give that like velvet textural feeling that just makes the wine beautiful and smooth. Really nice structural elements balance there. Is it dry in the middle or sweet? What do you think? Again, even though it had those sweet smelling aromas like red fruit and baking spices, this is a dry wine. Don't let your fruity nose deceive you. And alcohol content, do you think it was more or less than that? Are you feeling a warming sensation anywhere? I'm picking this one up in my lower throat. I would guess that this is 12.5, 13% alcohol. Let's see. And this is 12%. Okay, so pretty close guess. Any other thoughts, comments? Again, this would be both the two wines we've tasted so far were both very food friendly because they have that decent amount of acidity. They have great structure to them. Acidity acts as a conductor of flavors in food, so generally wines with higher acidity work well for food pairing in general. Pinot Noir is often a go-to red for your Thanksgiving dinner, so turkey. But we always talk about how there's many guidelines in wine and food pairing, and so lots of different guidelines. It ultimately comes down to what you like and don't like. But again, wines with higher acidity levels generally make a great pairing. And the acidity helps cleanse your mouth and counteract fatty proteins and get you excited and hungry and wanting more. So, all right, if no further comments, let's go on to our third wine, which is McCall Vineyard, owned by Russell McCall and the McCall family. They are actually, they were opened in 1996, and they produce small batches generally of quality wines. They're big into land preservation, actually are on a former Algonquin parcel of land. And this is their 2014 Reserve Pinot Noir, also an estate grape. So let's take a look at this. And it's still, it's clear, not cloudy. It's still ruby, but it definitely has some notes of garnet into it. You can see that if you compare it to the other one, it's definitely a little bit more brown than red. It's got a couple more years of age on it. So I would say ruby garnet, still clear. And what do you smell? Loving the comments coming through on the Buttonwood Pinot Noir we just had. Very well balanced, loving it, well received. Again, don't be shy with your comments and sharing with everybody. So what do you smell in this wine? You can see in all three of these, you get a lot of red fruit. That's a very characteristic descriptor for Pinot Noir. So again, cherry, strawberry, raspberry. I still get the hint of baking spices, almost like a touch of vanilla in this one. So oak often can portray itself either in the form of baking spices of an aroma or sometimes more of a cocoa, vanilla, or caramel smell. And everybody's olfactory senses or sense of aroma are different, right? So you might smell, when we say citrus, you might smell grapefruit and I might smell lemon. You might smell vanilla and I might smell cocoa. They're speaking to the same components of a wine. I get that Soil earthy again. There's a hint of, there's almost like a hint of our herbalness to this wine, I feel like. An herbal character to it. Any other thoughts or comments on the nose? All right, we ready to taste? I get more of the smokiness on the palate of this one than I did in the aroma. So, mouth-watering, jaw-tensing. This had a lot of acidity again. I would say probably medium plus. They all had a good amount of acidity. And again, they are all cool climate. New York State is cool climate. So that's pretty typical. And Pinot Noir typically has around medium acidity levels depending on the region. Hot climates, not as much. But this one definitely had a little bit more tannin level than the previous two. I would say that they each took a step up in tannin level. Medium level in the world of red wines. As I said, there's some varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon that have very high levels. So if you're comparing that to this Pinot Noir, you could feel a difference. But there was definitely that. So tannins are not only like a coating of chalk on your teeth and tongues and adding structural and a smoothness to both these two red wines, but it's also a mouth drying component. So it makes you want a glass of water. And so acidity and tannins kind of are like a tug of war, right? So acidity is like mouth watering, refreshing, jaw tensing, and tannins are like, I need a glass of water, mouth drying. But so they both add characteristics, and then it's all part of that, finished balanced product that goes well together. Would you say it was dry in the middle or sweet? This one is dry. And alcohol content, where do you feel a warming sensation? I again would be between a throat and a chest, probably 12.5-ish. Again, 12.5, 13-ish. And this one is, I was better on guessing this time, 12.8. You can see it. And I just realized we forgot to say the body on the previous one. So let's finish with the McCall Pinot Noir. What would you say the body is of this wine? Would you say skim, 1, 2, bowl? I would probably say medium, and same for the buttonwood. Medium body, between that 1 and 2% feeling of milk. All right, does anybody have any thoughts or comments? Again, that one would also be food friendly. We had a lot of acid and tannins. Pinot Noir, generally because it's not as full, typically, not as heavy in body or full in body as Cab Sauv, Shiraz, Malbec, some other reds. Typically, Pinot Noir is generally recommended to be served more with your poultry, even possibly seafood. So salmon is a really classic. So I said the US, but the Willamette Valley in Oregon is really known for Pinot Noir. And classic, because they're right on the ocean, is salmon. Beef Burgundy, obviously, is the classic old world dish. And that is beef, but it's stewed, so the meat's a little bit more tender. So lots of food options, lots of dishes. Again, there's a lot of usually baking spices and herbal earthy notes in Pinot Noir, which match really well with foods. So you have a lot of different options for food pairing. Keep in mind, as a guideline, we generally say you always want your wine to be as sweet or sweeter than your foods. So if you're having dry wines, which these all were, you want to make sure your dishes are also not sweet or have an absence of sugar. So these are 3 great examples of Pinot Noir from across the state. I think we can see how they have some similar characteristics of being grown in similar, but really actually quite diverse regions. So New York has such diverse American viticultural areas or regions, that the grapes grown in them can vary quite a bit. The weather patterns of each of the 3 regions can vary quite a bit between Hudson Valley, the Finger Lakes, and Long Island, and certainly Lake Erie, Niagara Escarpment, and Lake Champlain can vary quite a bit more from those 3 regions. So that's one of the things that makes New York wine so great and exciting, is that every year they're different. They are vintage variations. So, you know, 2016 was a hot, dry summer in the Finger Lakes. 2018 was a cool, wet. Those wines are going to vary, you know, pretty differently, even if made from the same grape, from the same vineyard site, in the same production process. So that's something that makes New York unique and exciting and always worth trying every vintage. Pinot Noir, as I said, can be a little bit of a challenge to grow, and you might not get as much fruit in the same amount of acreage as another grape. So it is definitely one of those labor of love grapes, but can have the potential to produce really elegant, beautiful wines, as we got to taste tonight. Anybody else have any further comments, thoughts on the Pinot Noirs tonight? As I said, Pinot Noir is grown all over the world, made in a multitude of diverse styles. So make sure you find where you like, and though it has similar characteristics, or banker characteristics, as we say in the somm world, like red fruit and earthiness, you can see how they vary, uniquely made from each winemaker and each site and each place around the world. So as I said, our next virtual tasting series is on February 12th. It's going to be, we've never done a pairing one before. It's always not just been a varietal focus. So we're going to be doing wine and chocolate. So I will be releasing those in the next WineVine. Make sure you sign up for that. And if you have any other ideas or suggestions, we do still have to taste Gewürztraminer and Syrah Shiraz. We'll wrap up, I think, in Sauvignon Blanc are the 3 we have yet to taste throughout the year. To wrap up our different varietals. If you have any thoughts or comments, I put my information in the chat toolbar. I'd love to hear from you. And if no other questions, then I think we can call it a night and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much for joining me.